Hey all, long time no see. I've been very busy as always, as it seems. I've got a bit of breathing room right now though, and I'm anxious to do some more videos while I've got the time, so I just thought I'd hit you with another video essay. Before I start though, I just want to say that if you like what you see here, I'd really love a subscribe, as it helps me to know how many people are interested in the videos that I do. And if more people are interested, I can actually prioritize them more in my work schedule. So today, rather than talking about specifics or finding links to classical music or music history, I just want to talk about one of my favorite game soundtracks and pieces of video game music ever. It's nothing fancy, it's just music that I love, and it's nice and easy for me to talk about. So if I could only listen to one soundtrack for the rest of my life, it'd be music from Final Fantasy XIV without a question. There's just so damn much of it. And all of it completely slaps. Masayoshi Soken is by far one of my favorite composers today, and his work on Final Fantasy XIV I truly hope will stand the test of time, just as Uematsu's music has. If you've met me in person or gotten me on a Discord call or anything, I'm sure that I've annoyed the crap out of you with how great this soundtrack is through literally every aspect of music creation. I could probably do a full video on probably any track in this game and come up with some great connections. Seriously, if you haven't listened to it, that's your homework from this video. There's hours and hours and hours across the core game, 3 expansions, and numerous patches. But today I'm talking about the way they use boss music in the game and how they set expectations for fights and then completely shatter these preconceived notions of music that they've set to this point. And if you haven't played Final Fantasy XIV and are planning to, or you haven't made your way through Heavensward, specifically the Dragon Song War arc, definitely be aware that there's spoilers for the ending of that. Throughout this video, you're going to be watching me play through a couple of the fights a little bit, and I did a lot better than I was expecting because I haven't done especially one of these fights in quite a long time now, so that was good. So for just a general overview, boss music in Final Fantasy XIV often follows a somewhat predictable format, which makes it so much fun to not only play, but to listen to, because you know what's coming. Each boss fight, or trial as they call them in-game, takes place in phases as it's an MMO. And the music at a major phase shift usually changes drastically. This is often just a style shift or a simple addition of vocals, but usually it could even be considered jarring for how crazy they get. Check out how wild the Shiva fight gets in music when it changes in style at the phase change. So many of the fights are this way, and they often get crazier as the game progresses. It establishes this idea of what boss music is in Final Fantasy XIV, and it's always something to look forward to. Before we go on though, I just want to take the time to introduce myself, because this is Renatir Mach. That's me. He's an Al Ra, and he's the Warrior of Light, or the Warrior of Darkness if you're in the first. And if you play Final Fantasy XIV, you're also the Warrior of Light. That's one of the awesome things about this game, is that it does a really great job of making you feel like you are the character and the hero, despite everyone else also being the hero. And eventually, Renatir here is working to end the Dragon Song War to conclude the storyline of Heavensward. So the Dragon Song War was a massive storyline that had its roots even before Heavensward even started, and it marked the progression of a 1,000-year battle between dragons and humans of the Holy See of Ishgard. It started after the murder of the dragon Nidhogg's sister after she tried to strengthen peace with humans, then humans killed her after learning Dragon's eyes hold immense power. Nidhogg and the humans then naturally entered a massive war with huge political and societal implications. It was a huge deal, and solving this conflict is one of the main points across probably like 80 hours of gameplay or so. But so Renatir here killed Nidhogg during his struggle, but then Nidhogg takes over my good friend Estinian, the Azure Dragoon's body, since his eyes are intact, and then says that the Dragon Song War is entering the final chorus. Renatir, however, isn't strong enough, so he meets with Hraesvelgr, a dragon equal in power to that of Nidhogg, and he joins the cause to fight against Nidhogg to end the war once and for all. And with this, we arrive to the scene of the boss fight. Hraesvelgr is greatly wounded and transfers his power to the Warrior of Light. Then the fight starts, and we get this. When I heard this the first time, I was completely and utterly floored. Trial music to this point had established a sense of hyping you up for battle, but this was arguably one of the most important fights of the series, and they start with Dragon Song, the main theme for Heavensward. No new, bossified arrangements like they've done before, no hype music, the original, unaltered ballad. To this day, I think this is some of the most impacted I've ever been by video game music. The lyrics of Dragon Song directly involve the story of Nidhogg, his sister, Hraesvelgr, and Shiva. It's a perfect setting for the end of the war, and oddly enough, some of the best boss music I've ever heard. What you're seeing right now is the fight of where this music actually does play. However, at the phase shift, Nidhogg turns into his merged form with Estinian, then we get our next piece, Freefall, which is definitely more in line with your traditional boss fight music. You start to hear Heavensward themes inside of this track rearranged specifically for this fight, which is much more standard for traditional Trial in Final Fantasy XIV. The nice thing about the themes and arrangements of the core music is that they always lend themselves so well to sounding so epic or adapting to each situation. Finally, though, we get a third piece of music in this fight, Revenge of the Horde, as Nidhogg transforms into a dragon form, still merged with Estinian. And this is where we get our gothic choirs, traditional dragon bite music, stuff like that. And we get direct quotes of the themes of Ishgard, the city-state that's been locked in a war for 1,000 years. It just adds a really great element of musicality and thematic material to a fight that has so much story implications to it. One thing that I always personally love is that Nidhogg's attack Akmorn, which I have on the screen right here, always seems to match up with the climax of this piece, and it's visually and just an auditory experience every time to me. It's huge, grand, and it's just a small thing that the music does to make it feel more impactful than it already is. Playing through this fight is honestly one of my favorite parts of Final Fantasy XIV even still, and it's one of the harder main fights in the game, at least at the time. And the story of Heavensward is still one of my favorites, although the Shadowbringers story, it's pretty good too. It's hard for me to tell anymore. If you haven't played Final Fantasy XIV though, I highly recommend it. You have to slog through the beginning of the game, which is really slow and it takes time. And I promise it's worth it in the end since it's less than 1/4 of the game, but don't ask me how long 1/4 of the game actually is, please. I don't want to answer that question because I want you to play it. Really though, this fight to me is great, not only because of the favorite boss music, but more importantly, it highlights the fact that in making music, using a choice that shouldn't fit is often more impactful. The biggest fight in the game, the huge dragon, the end of the 1,000-year-long bloody war. What music do we want for this? And we want a ballad. God, that's brilliant, let's do it. And that's the strength of this soundtrack to me. It constantly does things differently. Seriously, listen to the whole soundtrack even if you don't play the game. There is music in every conceivable genre, style, and from almost every culture even. It's actually insane how varied it is. It breaks conventions constantly, and it exposes the listener to different types of video game music that so often you just wouldn't expect. Christ, I remember when the Shadowbringers trailer came out, I just actually listened to that music by itself while I was driving in the car because it was so good. Alright, I'll stop here. I could seriously keep going forever, and I did want this to be a shorter video. Maybe I'll do some more videos on Final Fantasy XIV music down the line, since Soken is a verifiable god to me, and his music deserves to be praised more and more and more. But for right now, I'll leave it here with go play Final Fantasy XIV, please. It'll make me really happy.